Welcome to episode 68 of the Left Behind Game Club. This week, we play Splinter Cell Conviction. As always, you can find everything Left Behind Game Club at leftbehindgame.club, at Left Behind Game Club on Instagram, and at Left Behind Club on Twitter. If you like what you've heard, consider joining our Discord server. You can find that information on our website at leftbehindgame.club. Splinter Cell Conviction tells the story of a changed man, of a changed Sam Fisher. But he's a man that has his reasons.
The thing you have to understand is this. The Sam Fisher you knew is dead. America killed him, asked him to make one sacrifice too many, cross one line too far.
You're listening to the Left Behind Game Club.
Welcome to Left Behind Game Club, our never-ending attempt to make sure that no game is left behind. I'm your host, Jacob McCourt, and today I have one friend with me. You know him, you love him. His name is Murtadi.
I will never leave you, Jacob. I will always be your friend.
Please don't ever leave.
We're one. We are one.
So if we leave, could we form the fourth echelon together?
Correct.
So today we're playing Splinter Cell Conviction. It is the fifth game in the Splinter Cell series. It is available on Xbox 360 and PC, developed and published by Ubisoft in 2010. Mo, what's your history with the Splinter Cell series?
I've only just known the name. It's like, hey, have you played a Splinter Cell? Have you played a Splinter Cell? And to me, for some reason, it vaguely fits in with a bunch of games that have nothing to do with it. But in my brain, they're the same. So like Hitman. For some reason, like before I played Hitman, I was like, oh, Hitman, Splinter Cell, it's like the same developer, something like that. And like there was that. For some reason, I thought it was like, do you remember the SOCOM games?
Hell yeah, I do.
Yeah,
Zipper Interactive, let's go.
So I thought that was part of the Tom Clancy thing. I knew Tom Clancy was the author, but I was like, maybe he made every like fighter game, like action shooting type stuff. So I just knew the games. I want to say I've played a Splinter Cell. I'm hoping we can go through a list of all the games to like ring off a bell, but I think I did. If not, then it's probably because I played like SOCOM Fireteam Bravo and thought it was a Splinter Cell one time.
Well, Mo, I read your mind here because I have the list of games right here.
Woo!
So the first game in the series, Splinter Cell, was released in 2002. It came out on the Xbox, the original Xbox. That one kind of set the stage for the entire series. It is a stealth game focused on, stealth gameplay. And back in the day, I would say it was a little bit mechanical in the way that you went about the game. You shoot people, it's a military story, etc.
Nothing's changed. No, okay, continue.
Is that your best Michael Ironside impression?
No, we're good.
Then in 2004, Splinter Cell Pandora Tomorrow came out. That introduced Spy versus Merc multiplayer, which may be the thing that you remember.
I think that might be it.
Yeah, where each side had different powers, and the spies had to capture something. The Mercs were first person, and they had to kill you, and the spies were third person and had to collect things.
Yeah, that one rings the most bell, but it might be just because it was like marketed a lot during the time, and that's all I saw. What else is there?
Chaos Theory in 2005, which added cooperative modes. And then they kind of took a big left turn and went Splinter Cell Double Agent, where you played kind of both sides. You weren't part of the third echelon. You were kind of more of a maverick, if you will.
Yeah, on second thought, I feel like I've never played a Splinter Cell, and I've just seen the marketing and promotion everywhere for it, and just for some reason never picked up a title.
Well, I mean, they bridged both like the Xbox generation and then the 360 generation. The Double Agent Conviction, which is the game we played in 2010, and then Blacklist in 2013. Those are the ones that came out on 360 PC. Never on a Sony platform.
Aha! That's exactly what it is, because I've kind of grown up the whole Sony life since inception, I guess.
I mean, you don't have an N-Gage where you could have played Splinter Cell, or a DS where you could have played Chaos Theory?
I don't know. Usually my Nintendo world is surrounded by like Super Smash and some kind of Pokemon game. That's where I dabble in Nintendo.
Okay, so you've not played a Splinter Cell game before. How did you play this Splinter Cell game?
When you said Splinter Cell Conviction, I have I think it's Uplay, the Ubisoft like Microsoft PC platform.
Yep.
I knew I had a bunch of random Splinter Cell games in there from like a bundle or something a long time ago. Never touched them. I think I've played Siege for a bit. I think shout out to, I think Mike was the one that introduced me to that game.
Rainbow Six Siege?
Yeah, I think he played it a bit, so he kind of was like, you should try it out. Anyways, so I had a bunch of Splinter Cell games. I go in there, I'm like, fingers crossed. Sure enough, Splinter Cell Conviction is right there. So that's where I played it in. Ubisoft's Uplay platform on PC, mouse, and keyboard. With that, I'm going to jump into it before I give it back to you. I tried playing it with a controller because I was like, you know what? I haven't played a controller game in a while, and this is a first-person shooter style-ish. No, it's a shooter. My controller just didn't work for some reason. I don't know if there was no the key bindings were not mapping to two separate controllers I was using. One of them was the Xbox Elite controller. The other one was like the default Logitech gamepad that you buy if you want like a controller that's not Microsoft. I tried that one. For some reason, the camera, I was only able to walk like strafing. I couldn't use my right analog stick to like aim with anything else, even though the instructions on screen were saying use the right stick to do something. Both controllers weren't fit for work.
Bizarre, and that's I would imagine back in 2010, controller support wasn't ubiquitous on 100%. PC.
I didn't not dock it for that. I was like going to try to do it, and then it didn't work, so I used the mouse and keyboard. And it was fine-ish. I'll talk about it later. Okay,
that's great, because I actually played the game on Xbox 360, and I've dropped something very, very interesting right in front of you.
See that.
It is the Xbox 360 Splinter Cell Conviction, what does it say, Special Edition?
Collector's Edition.
I didn't even realize I had this.
So this is like one of those steel box set things that people pay too much money for and then chuck away after like a day of reading it.
Yeah, I think that was probably one of the last ones that I ever purchased. But I was looking on my shelf and I'm like, I own Conviction. Where's my Conviction? And it's because it's one of these special edition steel books that came with additional codes for extra weapons and extra skins and some decals. But beyond that, it's the same dang game. It actually comes with a cool booklet that lets you go through some of the art of the series. So shout out to Ubisoft for their special editions, but that is how I own that.
Were these DLCs before there was the D part in DLCs?
Yeah.
The DL part?
Yeah, kind of.
This is just extra content?
Yeah, you get a special weapon, and it's actually like a really amazing weapon that I use through a lot of the game.
Yeah. So this is just the C part.
That is just the content part, yes. Yeah. I own 2 copies of Blacklist as well, but I don't want to get into why I own 2 copies.
The thing is, even if we did get into it, you wouldn't have a sufficient answer that would satisfy anyone for why you would need 2 copies.
No, people would shake their head and go, oh, Jacob. But as far as my history with the series, I used to play almost like every game in the Clancyverse, if you will. Cool. Like I was a huge Rainbow Six 3 Black Arrow fan, a decent fan of Ghost Recon. I played some of those games. And I even tried some of their games like H.A.W.X. Do you remember H.A.W.X? It was like
I think so.
It was a console RTS.
So you said Ghost Recon. That's the game I played. That was the Tom Clancy game. And because he did Splinter Cell, I assumed it was the same thing. So I played Ghost Recon 2, I think.
Okay.
And that's why I was like, I feel like I've played a Splinter Cell. No. I played Ghost Recon and that's Tom Clancy.
There you go. And I might be mistaken. H.A.W.X, I think, is the flying game.
I think it is.
And then there's EndWar, which is the console RTS.
Ah, cool. Yeah.
And then I've played almost every Splinter Cell game all the way down to Conviction. I have Double Agent, never played it, and I own Blacklist, never played it. But that's my history with the series. Before we get into the game itself, we're going to spoil this game. I think it's fair to say that the story in this isn't like gangbusters, so if you want to stick around, please do, but we are going to spoil the story here, so this is your point to stop listening if you are interested in playing the game.
Yeah.
I want to start by reading off a quote from GameSpot's Kevin Van Ord that I think just like solidly shares what Splinter Cell Conviction is.
Who is that? Is that like a editor or something?
Yeah, he was an editor at the time on GameSpot when this came out in 2010. So cool. He says, this isn't the Splinter Cell of yesteryear. Sam Fisher is losing patience, which in turn translates into a speedier stealth and a lot more bullets than before. It's hard not to feel a twinge of disappointment if you're a fan of the series. Sam's newest adventure doesn't offer the challenge you may be expecting, and recent stealth action hybrids like Metal Gear Solid 4 and Batman Arkham Asylum provide much more satisfying single-player experiences, yet stellar storytelling, fantastic co-op play, and rewarding executions make Tom Clancy's Splinter Cell Conviction a legitimately great game that delivers frequent surges of excitement between the brief thrills of freeing your partner from a chokehold and the sharp adrenaline rush of a bloody execution. Conviction will leave a mark on your memory.
Mm-hmm. I think he nailed it right on the head if this review is coming out in 2010.
Yep.
Because, he marked out the couple, Metal Gear Solid and Batman Arkham Asylum. I kind of got a similar-ish vibe, but I felt like it wasn't hitting the mark as much as those ones and how they impacted me and me playing those.
Yeah, I played this game when it first came out in 2010, and if you look on my favorite games of all time list, this probably wouldn't be in the top 10, but it would probably be in the top 20 or 30 games that I played. Having replayed it, I kind of wish that I didn't.
It's one of those.
Yeah.
It's one of those amazing games you loved when you were younger, and then all of a sudden you try it again and just breaks your heart.
And I think it's fair to say that this game does deliver. I actually thought when I was playing it that I'm like, oh, this game came out in 2014, 2015, because that's the way it felt. But it did come out in 2010, so I don't want to totally discount it, but it has been dated just a little bit.
Yeah, 100%. You want to know one small thing, mechanically, that kind of made me feel like it was an old game? It was I want to say in the first couple hours, you're in a Baghdad or some kind of Middle Eastern place where you're wielding, or it wasn't really you, it's another player that's trying to save the Sam Fisher guy, and when you use a scoped AK-47, every shot you take, there's absolutely no recoil. The crosshairs just kind of stay in one spot. I'm like, oh, because we're just forgetting about physics now, aren't we? And that kind of was okay, maybe back then that was just part of shooting. I'm not going to knock what's it called, GoldenEye, for not having any recoil with guns. So I'm not going to knock this one, kind of thing, even though that's quite a bit away from the timeline.
So you play in this game as Sam Fisher, who has quit Third Echelon, which is a government organization that manages information warfare, essentially, in 2010.
Yeah, super spies, kind of.
Yeah, and he was part of that for the first games. His daughter was presumed to be dead, and you kind of take it from there. But as far as... I don't think we should get into the story right this second, because I wrote a book report that we can just quickly go through the different points.
How convenient.
But I do want to talk about the controls and the gameplay, because I think that's where this game shines.
Yeah, for sure. I guess so. You start off as it's a third-person shooter adventure game, essentially, where there are some kind of spy tactics and techniques that are introduced early on. I'll go through a couple, Jacob, and if you think I missed something, feel free to chime in. Earlier on, you're taught about the concept of the dark and how you want to kind of be in the dark when you're trying to either take down some people or just use it as an advantage. I didn't use it that much, but what it does is if you are in the dark, people are less likely to see you if they're directly looking at you. You kind of have a little bit of a buffer to almost sneak up to people or grab them from behind and they won't see you. Whereas if there's broad daylight or a light shining on you, they can look at you from across the room and kind of alert everyone and say, hey, there's a guy here, take him down.
And stylistically, it does something really cool when you're in the dark. It goes to a black and white color palette so that okay, cool, I'm in the dark, no one can see me.
Yeah, I love that. I love that whole just kind of the additional feedback to let you know, okay, you can maneuver how you want to because the effect you're trying to achieve is activated.
Yeah, and other games have done cool stuff, but when you think about Hitman, which is a game you brought up that we played on this podcast, 5-part series, you can check it out, more than 5-part, 6-part series, you can check that out in our archives, but they do some cool stuff where they kind of say hey, you're not in alert mode right now, and they do that through the UI, but this game came out in 2010.
Yeah, that's the thing what we're going to always be coming back to, there's some things that are kind of annoying myself, and I'm assuming there's stuff that annoyed you, but it's not that big of a deal because when you look at the date, it did come out.
So I derailed you. You talked about the dark. What are some of the other stuff in the game?
One of the cool things I kind of enjoyed, and I don't know, I feel like I've seen it somewhere in some other game, but the only one that reminds me of it is this. It's when you approach a doorway and you hear people inside. Early on, you kind of slip under a mirror to kind of see what the situation is, and then later, once the game kind of starts, the main missions, you use this camera system, and I thought that was kind of a cool concept for a spy game. I didn't feel like this was a spy game per se. I felt it was just a run and gun shooter, but if it was a tactical gun thing, it'd be pretty cool to be able to just go through a doors and see the 4 people, find out there's a window behind them that's open, let me slide out around the building and kind of jump in and take them out. I use that sometimes, but most of the time it was I felt like I was just running and gunning.
It's funny, whenever I think about this game and then kind of the trajectory of the entire series, I always bring it back to the show 24. Did you watch 24?
I never did, but I know it's a pretty popular, and I kind of, from the commercials, I can kind of see where you're going.
Jack Bauer.
Yeah.
CIA.
Don't get me started about the voice, man.
That was my Michael Ironside for you.
Okay, so can we talk about the voice actor?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so I want to just, as some of you may know, I'm a huge Command & Conquer fan. I've kind of played them all my life growing up, but hundreds of hours into those games when I was younger. And it's Michael, what's his name?
Michael Ironside.
Okay, so Michael Ironside plays a very prominent commander in Command & Conquer 3. And when he's not really doing a voice acting, he's playing himself, but using that Sam Fisher voice. I've heard it countless times. I've played the campaign like dozens of times before. So I hear this voice. I know this voice. This is my voice. I boot up freaking Sam Fisher in Conviction, and he's using the same voice, and I'm like, the face doesn't match. I can't disconnect it. To compare it, Sam Fisher plays essentially like Snake from Metal Gear Solid. What's his name? The guy from Taken?
Oh, Liam Neeson.
Liam Neeson's actor from Taken. That's essentially what Sam Fisher looks like in the Splinter Cell series.
Yeah.
And then I don't want to knock Michael Ironside, but he looks almost like Darth Vader when the mask comes off, but like with good facial. Like a better, like, I don't know, he's just a tall, like bigger, like white guy.
Yep. He reminds me of like Michael Chiklis or the guy who played Vincent, who played in Daredevil, Kingpin in the new Daredevil series on Netflix.
Exactly.
Reminds me of that. And I'd never looked at him at all. So what you told me to do before we started the show, he's like, I'm going to talk about Michael Ironside. What I want you to do is Google his name when I start talking about him and tell me what you think.
Yeah. And
this is not what I expected.
Yeah, and it doesn't match. But at the same time, like that voice is like iconic for like a bad like villain. Like, today we're going to take everyone down. Like that's my best impression. But so great cast for the voice acting, but I couldn't disconnect the two because my brain was certainly connected to the visual voice actor in Command & Conquer.
I was thinking of David Hayter, who's the voice of Snake, and that kind of person when I thought of what Michael Ironside looked like, not him at all.
Yeah, even like the craziest part is, not to jump into another game, but in the Batman series, Kevin Conroy that plays Batman,
the best Batman that's ever been.
If anyone like argues, I don't participate in the argument because it's foolish. He is Batman.
Thank you.
Even when I saw him as the voice actor, he's kind of like a skinnier version of like, you know what it is? I know you watch My Hero Academia. He's All Might. Batman is All Might, the big buff monsters, and Kevin Conroy is like the deflated one. But his voice acting, I believe it. I'm like, you know what? If I saw him in the street and he started using that voice, that's Batman. He's just retired. You know, he's going through some things. Like his knees are giving out. That's Batman after the fact.
He's like Bruce Wayne in Batman Beyond.
Yeah, exactly.
So to tie it all back to 24, Dennis Haybert, who played the president in the 24 shows, was the voice of your companion through the first 4 Splinter Cell games.
Gotcha.
Tying it all back together.
Gotcha.
So this game is like 24 in that over the course of the show, Kiefer Sutherland, who plays Jack Bauer in the series, kind of went from like a straight man to like got a little bit in trouble with the law, and then he just went and became a total renegade. And that's kind of what they're trying to portray both in the character and the gameplay in this one, that like, you're a renegade, do what you want, including interrogating men however you like.
Yeah, that's what I didn't play any of the other games, so I didn't have that backstory. How I picked it up was he's a former like a special agent that has like special like military skills, and they want him to come back to like fight again. So it's a typical. I feel like it's the story of several games, movies that's happened all the time.
Any book in the Clancyverse, I'm sure, would be very similar to this.
Yeah, exactly.
Jack Reacher, you name it.
Having the backstory of like the previous games and like kind of, you said you did the book report. What, in a nutshell, what's the general story? I guess, do you want to set it up from when we start, when he talks about his daughter? Because that's what kind of loops him in. Yeah,
so do you mind if we actually talk about some of the other parts of the gameplay first?
Fire away.
So the other parts of the gameplay, the mark and execute feature is brand new in Splinter Cell.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so that is the first game where they do it. Do you want to kind of explain what that feature is?
Sure. I didn't use it that much, but...
What?
I'll explain why. Okay, so essentially, if you do a hand-to-hand like combat takedown of an individual, you unlock an ability to like mark individuals, and if you're within their sights, you can click on the mouse and keyboard is the E to execute, and you could just one-shot headshot all of them in super like fast motion. Red Dead Redemption, similar concept.
Deadeye or Red Eye, whatever.
Red Eye in Red Dead Redemption. It's a similar concept, but you can only unlock it, and you get one chance after you do like a physical takedown of someone, either sneaking up behind them and choking them or whatever it may be, that unlocks the ability. The reason why I didn't use it, Jacob, I know you're surprised, is it was kind of annoying that I had to do a takedown to like initiate it, rather than like accumulate some kind of experience. Like if I took down 10 guys over the first mission, give me like a shot at it or something. Yeah, that's just maybe a personal gripe of like how I kind of. So that's one of the reasons why I didn't use it that much. But when I did have it available, if someone was walking in a doorway and I did take it, I used it every time. But I didn't actively say, "Shoot, I have to find someone to take down. That way, I can execute 4 people."
Yeah.
I was just gunning. I was gunning all the time.
I think it's fair to say that if this game was more open-ended and gave you more, because this game is very linear, and it gives you some like room in the playground to kind of play in the toy box. But I feel like even games that came 5 years later gave you more to do and more to play with. Even a meter that was like, cool, you killed 10 guys in whatever way you want, you get a free mark and execute. I feel like that would have been better.
Yeah, that sounds great. Even with the gameplay too, the one thing besides the marking thing, because you mentioned how there's some ways to kind of kill people that were like, okay, I kind of was annoyed by the dropping of like items from the ceiling, like shoot down this like light or whatever it is, and it's gonna kill people. It seemed very like detached from the gameplay. It's not. I don't know. It didn't seem believable that this guy's gonna shoot this thing down to make a huge ruckus and kind of bring more like backup in. He's a military guy. Why would he want to make more noise?
Yeah.
And it seemed like they emphasized a lot about sneaking around, but to get through the game, you're not sneaking. You have to like more or less go into a firefight with your silenced pistol against armed guards with like machine guns. It didn't seem, even if in movies standpoint, like if you just saw someone walking around in like cargo pants and like a J. Crew sweater, he's not taking down like 20 SWAT guys with machine guns and like helicopters. Like it's not gonna happen. I don't care how Liam Neeson he is.
Yeah, or how Die Hard he is, how John McClane he is. He's not going to do it.
Yeah, I have to jump into it now because I just remembered it. There's one part later on in the game where Sam Fisher gets shot in the chest by one of the main characters, and he drops down. I'm like, do you know how many bullets I've absorbed in this entire game? And I didn't even flinch. I was sprinting with like a whole clip going through my chest. And then in the scene, he gets shot once. He's like, oh, why would you do this? Like,
yeah, there's a weird balance between like realism and making this game fun. Because like you, I feel like to progress in some of the areas, some of them are very narrow.
Yeah.
And you have to take... I don't think you could go through this game very easily by not killing anyone. You have to kill some of the guys.
I'm sure there's some video online of someone doing it, but that's just like, bravo. That's a tough thing to do. It's not like... like that reviewer said when you first started this podcast, like, it's not traditional, I guess, stealthiness. I was expecting a little Metal Gear Solid of like being stealth and getting through, and you have the option to not engage anyone and still progress.
But yeah. I played this game a lot like I played Metal Gear Solid 4, because in that game, you can, at some points, the third-person shooting is okay, and you can actually get out your gun and just start shooting people.
Yeah, it's an option.
It's an option, and I feel like I use this option a lot more here, even with one of the other kind of big gameplay things they added called Last Known Position, which was if you shot or killed someone and someone saw you, this little silhouette in kind of white would show up in the environment, and everyone would say like, cool, that was his last known position, and they would all go to there.
Yeah.
You can even play with that and go like, cool, I'm going to like let myself be seen and then run away and go around and then shoot all these guys from the other side.
I tried doing that a couple times too. I every single technique that they introduced I used in some way, but more times than not I wasn't even intending. Like the whole silhouette thing, usually I was just caught in the firefight, and I found that I couldn't even get away most of the time, because like any way you go, they're already coming towards you, like unless you like go through the ground somehow magically. It's tricky. The
controls I found, I don't know if you felt this on PC, but the controls didn't allow me to make very quick movements. So enemies will throw grenades at you, right? And we could talk about the gadgets as we kind of get into this, but sometimes a grenade will be thrown at you, and I don't know how many times I died because my brain, because the controls were so like far from what you expect from a stealth game, I found that I would fumble around and then just get killed in one instant by a grenade.
Okay, so it wasn't just me on the keyboard and
no.
mouse. So I was wondering, I was like, maybe if I would... That's one of the reasons why I want to play it on there, because I figured it's probably a bunch of mechanics, be easier to use. I had the same thing. I found, like, especially even when you're moving stealthily and you're trying to connect with a wall, like Gears of War style, you know, when you're like stealthily walking behind an object, there's sometimes I'm like, why can't I go to this area right here? It's so close. I can go to this one, but I can't go to this box, which is closer. There's a couple times I had to get up and like exit the stealth walking mode and walk normally to another position, exposing myself essentially to the enemies.
The stealth gameplay in this one and the cover system is entirely different in that, like, on the controller at least, you have to hold left trigger in order to like stick to cover, and you can move between covers by hitting A, but I find it's not as elegant as something like a Gears of War.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly what it was, because in my head I'm like, Gears of War, it was kind of weird to do that, but it was fun and addicting because you're always stuck on the wall, and everything is accessible. You can jump over the wall. This one I feel like wasn't as good, and it sucks that we're comparing it to another game, but that's what it was. Like, I was comparing it to maybe a game I've played in that time. Like, Batman was pretty sweet. Yeah.
Vanquish had good cover systems.
The thing, Vanquish was so unique. Like, it was fast running gun, and they were able to handle the cover pretty well too.
Yeah, Binary Domain is a game that I played in that area, which maybe someday I will get you guys to play on this podcast because it's nuts. But it had a cover system very similar to this, where it was a little bit clunky. Gears only came out, I think, 2 or 3 years later than this, so it's not completely out of the question for the cover system to be better than this.
Yeah.
No, Gears came out before this.
I feel like it did.
Yeah.
Especially Gears 1 was like one of the original OG Xbox 360 titles.
Yeah.
Did it come out for Xbox original? No, right?
No, it would have came for 360. Gears of War came out in 2006. Yeah.
Yeah.
So they can do better.
Weeks ago.
Yeah. I mean, look, they did their best, and they did their best in other areas. Interrogations is one of the areas where I found was very interesting.
Was it Batman that had interrogations as well, kind of like that, where he kind of like picks some like a thug up and it's like, "Where's the Joker?"
Yeah, pretty much.
Like, "I'm not telling you anything." It's like, dude, yeah. I thought that was cool, and I liked how when you walked around in an area, he would engage with like the different items. So if there was like a wine chest, he'd put the guy's head through the wine chest. If there was like a toilet, he would break the guy's head off the toilet. Like, there's always something. That's pretty cool.
I wish there were more of it.
Yeah, it was seamless though. I felt like with every item didn't look like an interactable item, which sometimes games kind of struggle with. You'll like randomly be like walking, it's like go up to an object and you see the object shining and it's just like looks like it doesn't fit there.
Yep.
Whereas here I felt like I was going up to things and I was like, I wonder if this is even going to do anything. And sure enough, he engaged correctly with whatever I was near, whether it was a regular wall, a locker, whatever it is. He engaged with it and it seemed like magic, I guess, because it didn't seem like it was an interactable item.
Have you heard of the concept of monster closets?
No.
So in a game like Doom 3, did you play Doom 3?
Yes.
Exactly that would happen, where like you're looking at a wall and there's a chunk of the wall that is a different color than every other thing, and you're like,
that's
cool,
what I'm talking about.
An enemy is going to pop out of that.
That's what I'm talking about. Exactly. It's usually any interactable item has some kind of, it's different than the regular environment. I mean, I don't know if it's because it's a different team that works on the animation or the color for certain things. But yeah, it's always it's easy to spot. It's like, okay, well, something's going to happen here.
Yeah, and I mean, they've gotten over that now, but like games of this era, I think, like you said, Splinter Cell Conviction did that very well, where you're like, cool, I'm going to take you over to this console, and am I going to break your face over it, or am I just going to punch you in the face? Like, we'll see when I hit this interrogate button.
Yeah.
Is there anything else from a gameplay perspective? Yes. What do you want to talk about in gameplay?
So as the chief guns officer at the Left Behind Game Club, I have to address the fact that I felt like I was robbed of gun gameplay because it was... Okay, I brought up Gears of War. I'm going to bring it up again. Gears of War's shooting was known as like... You can be precise from long range with certain weapons, but then like let's say the assault rifle, if you're over a thing and you're shooting, you're spraying and praying. Like it's just going everywhere. I felt like every weapon in this gun was a spray and pray, and there was no precision. And it was like annoying. Like, I'll start with all the other weapons. So that you can get an assault rifle. It did the same thing. If you're shooting, like if you're standing, like I guess in a crouched position and you're aiming at someone, not even over an object, you're not gonna deck them. Now these rifles can go like 500 yards and take down a target. You're telling me I can't shoot someone who's 30 yards away?
You mean in real life, right?
Yeah. You can't tell me I can shoot someone 30 yards away and like not hit them exactly where I'm aiming in the crosshairs. Like we've done this before. They wasn't adding any benefit besides like. And he's a trained ex-military guy that they're bringing back into service. What, did he forget how to shoot? Like, does he... It just got really... I'm like, how are we... Like, especially with the pistol. Like, that's kind of, I feel like, the weapon that... The silence pistol was, like, the main one because you had unlimited ammo. So you could take down as many people. But it got so annoying when there's someone literally 20 yards away and I'm trying to shoot them and I can't even hit their chest. Like, that was one of my biggest gripes with the game. I found myself using the silenced shotgun a lot. But because running out of ammo, because you're unloading so much, if I was running and gunning, I eventually just used the pistol most of the game.
Yeah, because the pistol, you have unlimited ammo too. Yeah. So you can just kind of spray and pray with that bad boy. I used either an assault rifle or a submachine gun as my backup weapon. Same.
But shotgun was kind of what I had to use just because sometimes I got scared. There's like 3 people like coming so close at me, I just wanted to one shot, boom, instead of relying on the aiming of all those rifles.
And it's fair to say that if you get shot basically twice in this game. Like you're going down and you're dying.
Yeah, I was playing on normal. What were you playing on?
I was also playing on normal, and it's fair to say this is the second time I played through the game. As you play through the game, you get these challenges. You achieve these challenges, which give you points which you can use to upgrade your weapons. But I found that even as I was upgrading my weapons, it didn't help me in the way that I wanted them to.
No, I didn't see any effect. Everyone went down relatively easy. There's some guys that you have to shoot like maybe 4 times, like in the chest. Headshots were really effective, but it seemed like there were so many guns, but there's no need to use any of them because none of them were much special than the other, besides maybe holding more ammo in a clip.
Yeah, I used a lot of the gadgets instead of using the guns, and and maybe that's what they intended, is for you only to use your weapon as a last resort. But like, I hate to keep bringing up like Hitman 2016, but they give you a toolbox where every piece of the toolbox can equally get you to where you need to go, aka murdering fools. Yeah. But in this game, I feel like they really like kept you to, okay, hand to hand, sure. Gadgets, yes. Guns, only if you're in a pinch.
Yeah, but there are some situations where you're in that pinch all the time. You're going to need to use it. What about the sonar kind of thing?
Yeah, so later in the game, you end up getting this kind of the iconic Splinter Cell 3-lensed.
That's where it's from.
Yeah.
Okay.
It was kind of a little throwback. They're like, hey, you know how to use one of these? And it's one of those like 3-lensed goggles that let you see sonar-wise all the guys through walls, which to me was one of the coolest gadgets and coolest parts of this entire game.
Yeah, Batman Arkham Asylum. Literally the bat view or whatever, where you can see through walls. It's pretty cool. I liked it. Just, you know what I liked most about it was just how the effect engaged. It was like a sonar pulse that went away from around you. And if it hit someone, they like lit up like a Christmas tree, and you see, okay, this guy's behind 2 walls over there. This guy's over here.
And also, if you move quickly, it distorts it.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Yeah. And then beyond that, beyond the sonar, you get like grenades, flashbangs, remote mines, sticky cameras. Sticky cameras are from like the earlier games too.
Didn't use them much.
You didn't use them much? And see, I used almost all my gadgets. Yeah. Like if I was going into a firefight, I would use all my gadgets and then come back to the kind of ammo storage facility, reload, and then keep going out.
With me, I was like, usually the flashbang, EMP, and the regular frag grenades were just like, I was using them purely offensively. Like with the flashbang, distract someone, run a gun, especially with the pistol. That's kind of been my strategy with this game. And I don't know, that's the way it was kind of pushing me towards, because I didn't like the navigation mechanics of being sneaky. I even didn't like shooting out lights, because I'm like, if I'm shooting out a light, isn't someone going to notice? So I was like, okay, I guess we're not.
And that's kind of the iconic thing from the original trilogy, is like, you will shoot out every light, and then like maybe you'll do the splits in a hallway and then like come and murder a fool. Yeah. But shooting out lights was essential to those first games.
Gotcha.
Yeah. In this one, not as much, but I took it more run and gun than I would have a regular Splinter Cell game. Mm-hmm. I had a badass moment, and this kind of is the epitome of like what Splinter Cell Conviction's all about. I took a dude, so I was in the White House, because of course you're in the White House in this game, and I came up behind a guy for the hand-to-hand combat, because you can actually take a guy and like use him as a human shield.
I use that all the time.
So I did that, human shield, and then marked 4 guys in the next room, and then bashed this guy's head against the wall, and then kicked open the door and just murdered 4 guys very quickly.
Oh, that's like a movie scene.
It was. It was like Taken. I was like, yeah.
Have you ever, like in the game, have you ever held someone hostage and then thrown them?
Yes.
And like seen them actually like fly? Like, I'm like, what kind of power does this man have?
Because they fly like ragdoll, like, right? Back when H.A.W.X physics was still a thing.
Yeah, and they were dead for some reason. It's like, I don't know why you're dead. Right? I guess sometimes he snaps his neck.
You get challenges for like throwing them at windows, which is always hilarious to do as well. Yeah. Because they just flop and they're like, bleh.
Oh, I wish I would have tried. That would have been giving me some joy in the game, I guess.
Oh boy. So we talked a lot about the controls, the gameplay. The controls, I struggled with them a lot. I found my guy Sam Fisher never did exactly what I wanted to do, and I wanted more tightness in the movement. Did you have the same problem on PC?
Yeah, same thing. I kind of wasn't even going to bring it up, because I thought maybe it was just like a PC mouse and keyboard thing.
Nope.
So yeah, that makes sense, because like it was frustrating a lot of the times when I wanted to get to somewhere and I couldn't, or like it just seemed like a game that wasn't finished. Like it needed another couple months of like just adding smoothness or adding other things to interact with. Like if you're only able to interact with something 6 feet away from you, increasing the radius like 8 feet. I don't know.
because there's a part where you actually have to go through a laser grid.
Yeah, it's pretty cool though.
It was cool, but it was really troublesome to do with your kind of loose controls.
Yeah.
Anything else on the controls you want to mention before we talk about the graphics and the really cool stuff they do with the environment?
No, I think I'd say in terms of mechanics, I think I got everything off my chest. I feel good now.
You feel good?
Yeah.
You feel like you've gone to church?
Yeah, let it go.
Well, let it go and tell me more about the Frozen. No, I can't do it.
You almost did it.
I tried. The environmental storytelling in this game, which is to me one of the highlights in the game.
What was the one game we played on the podcast? You know exactly what I'm talking about?
Gone Home?
No.
I said environmental storytelling, you're like, yeah.
Yeah, what the one with the island and all the kids, the ancestry, and the trees.
Oh, yeah, What Remains of Edith Finch.
What Remains of Edith Finch is exactly what I got from this game a lot. And I if you remember, if you haven't listened to that podcast, I strongly recommend it because I think it's a fantastic game. And it was one that surprised me, and I was kind of upset to have to record a podcast on it. After playing it, though, I feel like it's up there in one of my top 20 games of all time. So one of the things it does really well is it tells you storytelling in the environment. Now, Splinter Cell Conviction doesn't do that as well, but it has that concept. Let's say you're walking around, you might see a wall that randomly has giant writing on it saying you must save Sarah or you have to find the EMPs, blah, blah, blah. And it's written on the objects that I think only you can see. And similarly, there's also video clips that kind of get projected almost from a high school projector unit where you're kind of watching a clip of your background and your history. And it's kind of just in the environment, hidden wherever it may be. Let's say you're walking, you might be on the side of a car kind of being played and you can hear the audio and you can see the text in it. I thought it was pretty cool.
I think that was one of the coolest parts of it because even sometimes when you're being emotionally conflicted, there's a point in the game where you discover that your daughter who you thought was dead is still alive and that your best friend from the original trilogy that you killed actually was withholding that information from you, and it's just showing words about lies, deception on the wall and playing clips of you murdering him. It was very visceral. And back in 2010, I think that's one of the things where I went dang, that hasn't been done before. That is dope.
Yeah, I think it's pretty cool. It's you're visualizing his internal conflict without having a cutscene. You're not interrupting the gameplay, but you're still telling the gamer essentially this is what's going on in his head. This is why he's making the decisions he is. This is why now he's punching people in the face and breaking their noses.
Yeah, I think it's fair to say I said environmental storytelling. I wouldn't call it that because that is something like Gone Home where you're picking up objects and you're finding story elements from it. Mm-hmm. This is more storytelling in the environment.
Yeah,
I just want to.
There's probably a specific word that Mike would probably help us out with.
Yeah.
So
he's got a big brain.
Yeah, he'll figure something out.
But beyond that, I think the game does a really good job, at least in 2010, of moving seamlessly between cutscene and kind of gameplay. You can kind of tell when it happens, but I found a lot of other games would load into a cutscene, load into the gameplay. This did it incredibly seamlessly, and for 2010, I think that was a really
it's a big deal. It's
a big achievement at that point.
Yeah.
Anything else you want to say on graphics? Apart from the environmental stuff, I think that it's a pretty standard fare.
Yeah, I feel it wasn't bad, it wasn't good, but for the time, it was the standard. Whenever you said, "Oh, look at the graphics on the Xbox 360," you'd probably show a game like Splinter Cell, or when you're bragging about how good it was at the time. That's how I felt.
Yeah, and these days you'd look at it and go I could play this game. It doesn't look great, but it's fine for 2019. It holds up all right.
Yeah, it's fine. Oh no. I had when I was playing it, I had this idea thought out the whole time. This is this 2010 Splinter Cell is literally a mobile game, a current mobile shooter game in terms of graphics, mechanics, how hard it is sometimes to get to places, storytelling. If it wasn't Tom Clancy, if they just invented a game called Splinter Cell and they brought it out, and right now it'd probably be one of the top mobile games in terms of an experience because you're not expecting that PS4, you're not expecting that RTX 2080 graphics kind of thing. This is kind of what you're getting in mobile video games. That's how I kind of saw it. Do you kind of see what I'm saying? If you're able to download it on your phone and that was the graphics quality on there, you'd be all right, yeah, and it's running smoothly, 60 FPS. You're all right, yeah, cool. This is a pretty good achievement.
What's the game that Chair and Epic made on the iPhone that you swipe to kind of
Swords?
The Swords.
Okay, that's the
What's
thing.
that game called?
I can't remember. I think it's called Swords.
I'll get the name for you.
But anyways, yeah. So with that game, I know it has really good graphics. But I don't think the mechanics are as in depth in terms of multiple EMP grenades, multiple guns, shooting down lights. Infinity Blade. Yeah, that's why I kind of felt it's a decent mobile game. Because there's the standard for a mobile game is not You're not expecting the world. You're expecting something that's playable, good graphics, good sound, some story. I wouldn't be surprised if like you looked right now to see if Splinter Cell is available on like iOS. I feel like it's not that much of a stretch.
I'm going to do that while I ask you about the sound in the game. Did you find anything kind of normal with the sound or anything out of the ordinary with the sound in this game?
There wasn't, I don't know, I didn't find anything special. It was just, it was a generic shooter. Sorry for giving my summary all the way now.
There's not really much that's special about it, and it's fine. The guys are very sweary. I don't know if I, like, not sweary the video game developer, but like they swear a lot.
The characters?
Yeah. More so than I remembered.
Yeah, the vice president, the president, everyone like was, well, like the president didn't really swear, but everyone was very aggressive.
And I think it's because this game might have been the first one that had an M rating versus the others that had a T rating. I'm going to quickly look that up, but I think that it might have been one of the first games that kind of shot for that M rating.
In terms of like swagger, where does Conviction like land in terms of all of the other Splinter Cells? Like when someone says you should play a Splinter Cell, do they say Conviction first? Do they say Chaos Theory? Do they say just avoid them all? Like what's...
So it's interesting, right? Because in 2019, I think my answer to you is going to be very different. It's the third game with an M rating. The first two were T, and then Chaos 3 had an M, and then they went M from there.
Gotcha.
I would always go back. If you look at one of our first episodes, we made these lists, right? And on these lists, we're like, these are the 10 games we want to play on this podcast. As of next month, we'll be halfway through those lists. We've played 15 of the games on those lists.
Nice.
This is the one that I would have people go to first. Just because it's modern and it doesn't make you stick to that stealth gameplay.
Gotcha.
It's almost like a progenitor of a game like Hitman that came out in 2016. But the Chaos Theory and Pandora Tomorrow had incredible multiplayer that were some of my favorite multiplayer experiences growing up.
And those are more stealthy. I feel like if you want to introduce someone to a series that's known for stealth, wouldn't you want them to kind of try out the stealth?
Yeah, but I'm afraid that they're just going to be very, very dated. I know that they put out on PlayStation 3, there is a Splinter Cell trilogy collection that takes the kind of first three games and puts them out. I would probably either say to someone like go for a game like Chaos Theory if you want a stealth game, and then Conviction if you just want a good action game.
Gotcha. Okay, that makes sense.
That's where I'd fall on that, even though it hasn't aged as well as I kind of thought it would. So sound, nothing out of the ordinary. No. You can tell where the guys are based on the sound. Should we talk about the story before we kind of close it out and give you I can run you through my book report here?
Briefly.
So Professor Mo,
TLDR.
Can you grade my book report here based on the Splinter Cell game here? Okay. So Sam Fisher, he quits Third Echelon, which is that information warfare based organization in the U.S. government, to investigate the death of his daughter. He's in, I think, Bogota or something like that, and he's approached by hitmen that are like they're out to get you, and one of his former colleagues, Grim, comes to him on a phone, is like, hey, you need to get out of there and find a guy named Coben, who's the guy that's trying to kill you. He gets captured by Coben and the Third Echelon, and essentially they're like, hey, we're going to keep you here forever, ha 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 ha. Grim helps him escape because she's like, hey, there's a mole and they're causing problems and they're going to do something really bad. You need to be the guy to find out what's going on. She does. Or he does. He gets out. You're yawning. This is quite the story. You re-meet one of your colleagues, Victor Cost, who's a friend at the county fair to try and get info. Lucius Galler's involved from Black Arrow, a PMC, but essentially, in essence, without going down a rabbit hole,
Vice President's a bad guy.
The Vice President's bad, and the top guy at Third Echelon is bad, and they are concocting a plot that involves an EMP to murder the president.
Yeah.
So the end of the game...
EMP to shut down all electrical service, and then the president's exposed.
Yeah, so the president, the female president can get murdered, and this other vice president can take over. And then so that Reed, the head of Third Echelon, can get a promotion himself. So
you mentioned the president being female. There's another female moment that happened in this game that I'm so upset I didn't bring up earlier. So very early in the game, when Grim is like, you have to punch me. You have to punch me so we can convince everyone that like you attacked me and you escaped. And he's like, I'm not going to do it. Blah, blah, blah. It's like, in my head, I'm like, I'm not punching her.
I love your Michael Ironside.
Yeah. I'm like, I'm not going to punch her. I just paced around. I see if anything's interactable. I think stop for a second. I'm like, is there like an achievement if you don't punch her? And it's like, nope. And she keeps telling it, like in a cutscene keeps like, not a cutscene, but she keeps saying, you have to hit me. You have to hit me. And then all of a sudden I'm like, this is the only way. I think I waited 5 minutes. I'm like, there's no way I can get through this. I click the interactable and he punches the wall behind her instead of her. And I'm like, oh man, I could have waited. I could have just punch her and then it wouldn't have hit her anyway. Why am I wasting my time?
But he does punch her.
Yeah, in the second interaction afterwards. But at that point, I've wasted so much time. I'm like, I'm punching everyone. Like, let me get through this game.
It doesn't matter. Everyone's getting punched.
Yeah, I feel like they didn't give me an out in the other one. Why are they giving me an out right here? So that kind of.
So the game ends in you essentially having to take down these EMPs. You don't do it because you don't take down all of them. So EMPs take out Washington, and you have to walk through Washington D.C. to the White House, get in the White House, like, apprehend the vice president and save the president from the head of third echelon. That's the story in a nutshell.
Yeah, I thought it was pretty whack.
You think so?
Yeah, it seems so like, I don't care if there's EMPs going off. Rifles don't need electricity to function. How is there only like 6 guys defending the vice president?
There's a lot of holes in this game's story for sure.
Yeah, like you just walk out to him and you just punch him in the face. Like, it just seemed very. It was definitely like a sensational movie, like almost like a parody of like a actual stealth fighter movie.
There are at least 2 Gerard Butler movies that like reminded me of this. It was like not London Has Fallen, but like I forget.
One of the Fallen games.
Yeah, the Bounty Hunter or something. There's something that he played, like the Washington Is Falling, the President of Fallen, something like that reminded me exactly of this.
There's a new one coming out.
Is there?
Yeah, because I think, what do the commercials say? It was like, the president's like, I want to make you my like vice president or something, my chief of staff. And all of a sudden, these like militia guy come and kill the president, and they accuse Gerard Butler of killing the president, and now he has to do something.
That sounds like he does way too many movies exactly about this premise.
Yeah,
Olympus Has Fallen is the movie that I'm talking about.
It's part of the Fallen series, they said, because it's now this one's called like
Angel Has Fallen.
Angel Has Fallen. That's the final one.
Wow, I didn't realize this was a trilogy.
Yeah, I saw the commercial, and the worst part about that, I saw that, I'm like, oh, it looks pretty cool.
Reminds me of Splinter Cell Conviction.
Oh yeah, it's pretty cool.
You know, the way I felt about this game, especially when it ends, Megiddo is a name that you hear. I'm quizzing you right now.
Who in the is Megiddo?
Did you hear Megiddo at all?
I've heard it several times.
Okay, so Megiddo, you played the Metal Gear Solid games, right?
Yeah.
You know the, hold on, I wrote it down, La Li Lu Lay Lo in Metal Gear Solid?
No.
So, slight spoilers of Metal Gear Solid.
Which one?
Don't remember, but there's a secret organization like the Patriots.
Okay, I know the Patriots.
Called La Li Lu Lay Lo.
Okay.
And they're very much like that. Hard to pronounce, and they are secretly in charge of everything.
Gotcha. I've played 2. I've played 4. I think I played a little bit of 3.
Okay.
And I played some of the odd ones with just Raiden.
So I think you need to play Metal Gear Solid 1 on this podcast, but we'll table that for later.
Let's play 5.
Megiddo is this secret organization that at the end of the game, they're like, you know nothing, Megiddo's in charge, Megiddo will get you.
Yeah, that's neat. Is that when he's like, I'm bulletproof, and he's like, all right, bet, and he shoots him in the leg like 4 times.
Yeah, the vice president says that.
He's like, you can't touch me, I'm bulletproof. Like, all right, you're gone.
Megiddo, you're done.
Yeah.
But that's kind of in essence what the story is. It's very like standard fare. It reminded me a lot of. Do you know the movie Under Siege? This I think is my last point about it.
Okay.
Under Siege 2. Did you watch Under Siege or
No,
Under Siege 2?
Sorry.
Steven Seagal.
Oh, beautiful.
Who is now a passport holder of Russia, no longer of the United States.
He speaks like 4 languages. He speaks Japanese fluently.
And he also can kick the crap out of you.
He's like a multiple degree Aikido black belt.
Mm-hmm.
He taught Anderson Silva the front kick, and Anderson Silva goes in his next fight, front kicks like an insane striker and drops him in like seconds.
Amazing.
Yeah, and everyone's like, why is he be turning under Steven Seagal? And everyone's like, yeah, I know, really. And then all of a sudden he uses the front kick. And
so he has a series of movies,
yeah.
And he essentially plays like a Sam Fisher in these movies. And I feel like this game is my Under Siege 2, because Under Siege 2 is like one of my favorite action movies of all time. He's on a train. There's a satellite. He has to kill some people and save the train. Katherine Heigl is his daughter in the movie. Nice. We're talking a lot about movies in this show. But I came back to it a couple years ago and I watched it and I'm like, dang, this movie is not great. And I kind of feel the same way about Conviction. Mm-hmm. It is a solid like high 7, low 8 game that just doesn't age as well as I thought it would.
Yeah, I would say it was definitely that type of score back then. But right now, obviously, you can't rate a game like that now. It's
No,
That's not fair.
I don't believe in number ratings anymore anyway.
Yeah.
We can have a debate about that.
Oh.
I just had one more point I wanted to bring up. This game had a weird amount of product placement. I don't know if you caught it. There's two brands that were like featured very prominently.
Which ones?
Philips and Cisco.
Oh, yeah, I didn't notice.
Yeah, so Philips, when you're at the state fair, you just walk through and there are a bunch of booths that feature Philips shavers with large inflatable Philips shavers just hanging out there.
They got to cover the overhead, man. They need those sponsors.
Same thing with Cisco. So Cisco does like corporate telecommunication stuff.
Oh, yeah,
and at one point,
monsters.
They're like, go up to the telepresence machine.
Model 441.
And you hit the Cisco button and it's like Cisco telepresence. So
yeah, MSRP $49.99. Minimum order 400 units.
yes, $5,000 per year to operate.
Yeah.
Any other thoughts about Splinter Cell Conviction?
I think we've covered almost every single possible thing. I'm surprised it even went this long because I thought it was just a very basic game, and we kind of, I think, hit a bunch of stuff.
Yeah, I gave my thoughts that it's like Under Siege 2, and I returned to it. I'm a little disappointed, but still, if you're curious about the Splinter Cell kind of legacy, either Chaos 3 or this one would be the place to start. What are your final thoughts on it?
Yeah, similar thing. If you're really struggling for a game to play and you want to play one of the Splinter Cells, it was solid. I wouldn't say I had a terrible time. Mechanics were a little rough. But if I want to just knock that name off my belt, a Splinter Cell game, I definitely would have played it again. It's pretty good.
I think there are other, like if you're really into stealth, there are probably other games. Like I would recommend Metal Gear Solid over this. I would recommend Hitman over this. But like,
all day.
If you are interested, this game isn't bad. It just hasn't been as kind in time.
Yeah, I think a lot of people have played Metal Gear and Hitman, so maybe this is the option if they still want like a stealthy-ish series to look at.
I don't know about you, but I do want a sequel or a reboot to this game.
That'd be pretty cool with like good mechanics, some actual stealth, some guns that worked.
Because the last game came out in 2013 on the 360, and I don't know if it came out on PS3, but they changed the voice actor. It went back to more of its stealth roots.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't mind having a complete reboot of this game.
And I'm wondering, I brought it up with Mike, I think in a couple podcasts, like, what's the deal? Is it like, are these types of games dead? Like, because you want a game that you can keep playing. Like, is someone going to dish out that $79.99 to play a 4-hour, 5-hour mission? Like, where do you add that multiplayer component that was in the other games? How do you reboot this and have people care and buy it? There
are some very smart people at Ubisoft, and I'm sure someone in one of their many studios is going, how can we do the Hitman thing with Splinter Cell? Because to me, that's the natural progression for this game,
like
is open worlds.
Yeah, and like small missions. And yeah, that's Hitman. Whoever figured that idea hit it out of the park. And
like, not IDOS, but Square Enix let them go. Like, let IO Interactive, the developers of Hitman, go and do their own thing.
It was wicked.
It was. I think those are all the thoughts that we have about Splinter Cell. If you've been curious about some of the things we've talked about, I know we've mentioned our What Remains of Edith Finch episode. We've mentioned our Hitman series of episodes.
Great episodes.
You can check those out at leftbehindgame.club. If folks want to interact with us, where's the best place to do that?
Well, if you go on our website at leftbehindgame.club, we have a little link that will take you directly to our Discord channel. Feel free to join and jump in the conversation. We're always talking about games. I think Jacob talks about wrestling sometimes too. We try to find some deals. It's a nice little place to kind of keep up to date and see when the next podcast is coming out.
Yeah, and if you do like the podcast, we do appreciate any 5-star reviews that you give us on wherever you listen. It is incredibly helpful. I know on Apple Podcasts you can do it easily. On Stitcher you can. Just if you like the show, give it that 5-star review. It does help. And tell a friend, because we're always looking to have people come into the community and talk about some games that might not necessarily be the games that are coming out right this second.
Yeah, I think that's the best way too. All of my podcasts I've listened to, most of them I've found through a friend, or probably on YouTube somewhere as well. So that's the only way we can kind of get everyone to chat, if you guys chat along with everyone else.
And I do want to shout out someone who shouted us out on their show, on the Player podcast. I've been talking a lot with the Hoop Man from those shows. Their show is a little bit similar to ours in that they go topic by topic on different episodes, but instead of talking about a specific game, they will talk about a specific topic. So, for example, if you like affordable games, they do a specific episode about that. So again, you can check them out. That is the Player podcast. They shouted us out, so I will do the same and shout them out for their dope content.
Shout out.
Mo, if people want to find you on the internet, where can they do so?
You can find me on almost every social media platform at murtadi or murtadi.com.
And you can find me at Jacob McCourt on every major social media platform. And that, my friends, is one less game left behind.
Shout out to Mike.